A team of more than 24 firefighters, police officers, as well as the Franklin County coroner has returned to this scene. Witnesses say it all started in this driveway as kids were getting onto the bus. This fire has been burning since midnight. The problem is thousands of pounds of animal feed that firefighters are having to let burn out. New tonight, a Shippensburg man has been charged with beating an elderly woman to death with a hammer. Well, that's right, Flora. This is the 9th annual Ice Fest, and it is very icy out here. And I want to talk for a second, Dennis, about money. We got word this afternoon that the fundraiser that was done for the Klaus family at St. Paul's Lutheran over the weekend raised $80,000 in just one day. Well, the National Park Service opened its gates 2 hours early this morning at 7 o'clock after learning of bin Laden's death here in Shanksville. People began lining up, we're told, though, as early as 5:30 in the morning, leaving small memorials, American flags, pictures, flowers, signs all along this gate to honor those 40 souls who died here almost 10 years ago and the troops who've been fighting the terrorists ever since. Flowers and flags, reflection and prayer, visual reminders that America will never forget what happened here nearly 10 years ago.
I was actually out here at Somerset when it happened, when the plane went down, so it was kind of like, I felt like it was appropriate to come out and pay my respects.
United Flight 93 was the fourth and final plane to crash on September 11th, 2001. Its 33 passengers and 7 crew members hailed as heroes for fighting the hijackers and bringing the jet down over this farm field outside Shanksville. And now some new heroes, the Navy SEALs who took out 9/11 mastermind Osama bin Laden a decade later.
I felt a sense of pride, for one, for our special forces that got him.
I'm glad that bin Laden's been killed, and I wanted to be here because the perpetrator of this is dead, and it gives me some closure.
As visitors poured into the temporary Flight 93 Memorial Monday, Joe and Joanne Emanuel sat back, taking it all in.
We wanted to get that feeling for what's here. I said, there's more to feel than there is to see.
I mean, do you feel like America's happy today?
There's no question, and that's why I said, I just couldn't just go to work. It's not a normal day today. It's a day for history. It really is.
And while it's still unclear what this will mean for our country's future,
I'm hoping it brings our boys home now that he's gone.
These folks can certainly tell you what it means for the 40 people who died here in the past.
Felt like they have some, I don't know if to call it vindication, but probably up in heaven they're probably saying, you know what, we finally got this guy, and thank God.
It is such a heartwarming feeling to see all of you out here this morning to talk about the human effects of the budget impasse in Harrisburg.
It's the 6 words a community provider never wants to say.
We're sorry. We can't help you.
But that will be the reality come August 21st, when dozens of state-funded programs will close their doors.
What they're calling an unnatural disaster.
With no timeline for reopening.
And they won't reopen until 4 weeks after the budget passes. So Rendell needs to do something now.
The state owes community action programs like this one in Adams County more than $1 million in unreimbursed funding. These programs provide everything from homeless shelters to subsidized childcare and WIC. Also in danger, domestic violence shelters, the YWCA, Head Start, even Meals on Wheels. They've all come together with a clear message.
Need a budget now!
We came around the corner right now, saw people marching.
These guys say they're not walking to place any blame. They're just walking to ask for simple things like food, shelter, and clothing.
Pass the budget!
Okay, next group.
People assume that we have people who are drug addicts or, are transients, but it's so much more than that.
Like Tamika Overturf. A month ago, she and her husband were both laid off. And then their car broke down. They've been living at the Adams County shelter ever since.
It's not that easy. Some people think it is, but a lot of us, we're out there every day, even from the day one when we got there before we even heard about the budget.
Now, as community action directors prepare to lay off their entire staff, they're hoping the community will take some action and help the clients they can't help.
They can find out what their community programs are and find out if they can volunteer to fill in the gaps or make donations to keep programs over.
Families need a budget now!
A hero's welcome Wednesday afternoon at the Station 4 firehouse as fellow volunteers, family, and many in the community eagerly awaited Assistant Chief Jason Keeler's return from Johns Hopkins Burn Center. Jason sustained severe burns inside a mobile home fire on March 19th. He's had 3 surgeries and skin grafts over most of his body, but those waiting for him today didn't hesitate on the hugs.
Daddy hug. Miss you.
Walking slowly into the firehouse he's devoted his time to for the last 8 years, Jason paused to look at his burned up helmet and gear.
And I'll admit it to everyone in this room, I didn't think I was coming out.
A vivid reminder of the danger firefighters face every day on the job.
The simple thought of my kids growing up without a father bothered the hell out of me. I regained control, and that's when I called my Mayday.
Jason says he owes his strength to his wife Dana and his kids, 3-year-old Gabriella and 1-year-old Andrew, both overdue for a bedtime story.
It would take my daughter 2 to 3 hours of lying on my chest to finally fall asleep. I would give anything to have that back right now.
And then there's his firefighter family, the ones who pulled him out of that burning home and the ones who sat by his bedside day in and day out for the last 33 days in Baltimore.
And all I can say is thank you. My family thanks you. And I will never, ever be able to repay you for that. There's nothing greater than being part of this.
In Chambersburg, Megan Healey, ABC 27 News. Deep in the mountains of Franklin County,
get over here,
a little off the beaten path,
come on, Harold. Come on, Dookie.
Is 5 acres of land where homeless animals, fresh out of options,
his name was Tink, but now it's Tank,
can find a second lease on life.
Dogs here cost no money. The price of a dog is a good home.
George Statler is the man behind the mission here. He started Mountainside Pet Rescue, a no-kill shelter, out of his Upper Strasburg home in 1999.
So here's Duke up on the ladder on that one.
It all began with one neglected dog, a pit bull named Duke.
His whole tail was, you could see every bone.
George, a retired Army Sergeant Major, funds the rescue through his own monthly Social Security checks.
That's the trouble with a lot of these pit bulls. That's why they can't have a home like that.
Taking in dogs who are too feisty to be adopted.
She barks all the time. She still does.
Whose owners can no longer care for them.
They said, I can't put a needle in him. He suffered enough.
And most importantly, dogs who simply aren't wanted.
I just can't imagine pitching something like this for any reason in the world. I really can't. Right, little Chip?
He gives them a new home here.
But I live worse than they do, generally speaking. I mean, I'm going to clean their pen. Mine might not get cleaned till next week, and she will tell you that.
But also a special place for when they pass.
You know what would be great? If we had a little chapel for the pets' funerals. This marker stands to memorialize Duke the most.
George, who sleeps alongside his animals, has already created a memorial for his 2 favorites.
Me and Duke and Doze are going right over there where that rock pile is, and we already got our stone made. We're ready to go.
They'll be laid to rest together someday in his pet cemetery. But for now...
Back!
George has dedicated the remainder of his life...
You give me a kiss? That's a good boy.
...to making these lives a little better.
I haven't talked this much in a couple of years, by the way, so... Well, it's easy to talk about what you live with.
Absolutely.
And that makes it easy.
In Upper Strasburg, Megan Healey, ABC 27 News. More than 24 people are without a home tonight after a massive fire. Plus, will this next round of winter weather affect your Monday commute? The news starts right now.
You're watching WHTN, ABC 27. Now, live from the station working for you, this is ABC 27 News Nightside.
Well, there it is. Yes, that is snow coming down pretty hard in Chambersburg. And in some areas, it's even sticking. Good evening, I'm Megan Healey. Amy is off. This snow is a bit of a shock after last week's spring-like temps. We're going to go right to Rob Dixon. He joins us in the forecast center with the very latest. Hi, Rob. Nearly 30 people in Cumberland County are without a home tonight after a massive fire destroyed a historic apartment building. Dave Marcheski was first on the scene. And just a half hour before that fire broke out, crews were already already fighting a blaze nearby. Flames tore through a home on the 4,000 block of Darius Drive in Hamden Township. The fire spread next door where it also caused some damage. The house was destroyed. The Red Cross is helping that family. New tonight, a Shippensburg man has been charged with beating an elderly woman to death with a hammer. 36-year-old Manuel Carrero is charged with first-degree murder. Police say they were called to a home in Spring Township, Berks County last night. When they got there, they found the body of 82-year-old Lucy Bourne. Her 86-year-old husband was hospitalized with head wounds. Authorities say they have no motive at this time. Well, an autopsy is scheduled tomorrow on a man shot and killed by police. Yesterday morning, state police say 2 Southwestern Regional Police officers went to a home on Campus Avenue in Spring Grove for reports of a man trying to kill himself. Officers found 42-year-old Terry Lee Alphone in the house. He was lying in bed with the covers pulled up to his neck. Police say when they spoke to Alphone, he threw back the blankets, sat up, and pointed a Magnum revolver at them. Officers say that's when they shot Alphone, fatally wounding him. Again, an autopsy for Alphone is scheduled for tomorrow. Good news out of Lancaster City. Police have found a missing girl. 10-year-old Kathy Galin had been missing since Friday afternoon. This morning, police got a tip Galin may be staying with a friend. They found her at a local church. Well, they organized a rally last week, and tomorrow, Restore Sanity in Harrisburg will hold a press conference outside the city government center. On Monday, about 200 people came out to call for the resignation of Mayor Linda Thompson. Those unhappy with the mayor say she isn't addressing the city's problems responsibly. Some ralliers came out because they were upset by accusations made by Thompson's former spokesman, Chuck Ardo. Ardo says Thompson made offensive remarks against gays and Jews. The mayor has not directly responded to those allegations. Staying in the city, the search for a superintendent for the Harrisburg School District may come to a close this week. The board is looking at 2 candidates, York Superintendent Dr. Eric Holmes and Dr. Sam DePaul, who has 24 years of experience as a super in Western PA and North Carolina. The men met the community at public forums last week. The school board's decision is expected on Tuesday. In national news now, the battle over budget cuts and union rights in Wisconsin is heading into its second week. Both sides are digging in, and Democratic state senators are hiding out to delay a vote. Barbara Pinto reports. That was Barbara Pinto reporting. Well, pro-democracy protests continue in the Middle East. Today, some of the most violent protests yet since Egypt first ignited the flame. Hundreds have been killed and thousands wounded in Libya, where security forces have reportedly turned machine guns and mortars on protesters. They're demonstrating against a 40-year dictatorship there. The U.S. ambassador to the UN says leaders facing pro-democracy protests like those in Libya need to lead the way rather than resist reform. In Yemen, thousands marched on the capital, and in the Kingdom of Morocco, 2,000 filled the streets calling for a new constitution. The turmoil in the Middle East is affecting every American in a very direct way at the gas pump. In the last month, the average price has gone up 5 cents per gallon and risen 53 cents per gallon in the last year. Analysts say there doesn't need to be a halt in supply to drive oil prices up. Nervous energy traders worried about a disruption in oil supply are closely watching events in the Middle East, and that jittery market is keeping prices high. Now, in Dauphin County today, the World Affairs Council of Harrisburg discussed that wave of protests in the Middle East. We talked to one of the panelists, energy expert Dr. Bernard Weinstein, about how the conflict could spill over into the U.S. And Dr. Weinstein said those include America's abundant natural gas reserves, such as Marcellus Shale, and nuclear energy, which has no carbon footprint. Federal money is set to run out in less than 2 weeks, but Republicans and Democrats remain at odds over the budget. Coming up, the latest from Capitol Hill. And in our second half hour, how does a dog end up 750 miles away from home in just 2 days? We've got a hint. He probably didn't walk. Stay with us.